It looks like we are entering white water. We are completely lost. Man, those are some chilling final words, aren't they? They were broadcast on December 5th, 1945, by the pilot of Flight 19, right before his squadron of 5 Navy torpedo bombers vanished completely without a single trace. I mean, no wreckage, no survivors, nothing. It's exactly the kind of mystery that just sends a shiver down your spine.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're setting out on an investigative journey to take apart one of the world's most famous and, let's be honest, terrifying maritime legends, the Bermuda Triangle. We're going to look really closely at the history, the wildest theories, and most importantly, the cold, hard data, so we can finally separate the myth from the reality. Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, Birth of a Legend. So, to really understand how this massive stretch of the Atlantic Ocean became known as a cursed graveyard, we've got to look at how the legend actually started. You see, it didn't just happen overnight. Isolated incidents spanning centuries slowly built the foundation of this myth. Believe it or not, it actually starts all the way back in 1492. Christopher Columbus was sailing through this area and actually recorded in his log that his compass was acting incredibly strange. He even reported seeing this bizarre candle-like light bobbing in the distance. Fast forward a few centuries, and major disappearances like the USS Cyclops in 1918 and, of course, Flight 19 in 1945 really started to fuel public panic. But it wasn't until 1964 that a journalist named Vincent Gaddis finally connected all these dots in an Argosy magazine article. He officially coined the catchy, terrifying name we all know today, the Bermuda Triangle. He basically just drew a line from Florida to Bermuda to Puerto Rico, and boom, a legend was born.
But long before it had a catchy name, sailors had a very real, very physical reason to fear this water. When Columbus sailed through, his ships actually got stuck for days in thick, dense mats of algae called sargassum. This area is actually known as the Sargasso Sea. But here is the crazy part. When this massive amount of seaweed clumps together and rots, it produces hydrogen sulfide gas. It smells terribly like rotten eggs. And if sailors breathed it in for extended periods of time, it could cause severe psychological issues. We're talking paranoia and even temporary insanity. So early explorers getting stuck and hallucinating out of their minds really planted the very first seeds of fear.
Which brings us to Section 2, Vanishing Ships and Planes. As the centuries rolled on, the story started evolving from just hallucinating sailors to massive, completely unexplainable disappearances. I mean, look at these incredible losses. In 1881, the crew of the Ellen Austin supposedly found an abandoned ghost ship. They put their own men on it to salvage it, only for a storm to separate them. When the weather finally cleared, their men had completely vanished. Then in 1918, you have the USS Cyclops. This was a massive 542-foot Navy cargo ship loaded with 10,000 tons of heavy manganese and over 300 men, and it just disappeared. No SOS, no wreckage, just gone. And then the sky started claiming victims too, like the Star Tiger passenger plane in 1948, which vanished without a single distress call. The complete absence of wreckage or SOS signals absolutely fueled wild imaginations. But the most famous of all, it's definitely the one we started with, Flight 19. Back in 1945, 5 bombers went out for a totally routine training run out of Florida. The flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, reported his compasses had failed. He became entirely disoriented, basically believing he was over the Florida Keys when he was actually over the Bahamas. In a state of total confusion, he ordered his planes to fly east, deeper into the vast Atlantic Ocean, until they all simply ran out of fuel. It's a truly tragic sequence of events, and it's a core narrative thread we're going to revisit in just a bit. Now, what's really interesting about this next slide is how people tried to make sense of it all. Section 3, the scientific suspects. As public panic grew, scientists naturally started hunting for plausible natural phenomena to explain these vanishments. The first major suspect? The magnetic field itself. The Bermuda Triangle is one of the only places on Earth where an agoniotic line passes through, meaning true north and magnetic north perfectly align. If you don't calculate for this, your compass is going to be way off. But it goes deeper than that. The island of Bermuda is actually a volcanic rock formed from lava 400 miles deep within the Earth, bringing up a massive concentration of magnetite. We're talking 500 billion tons of highly magnetic rock. Some pilots, like a guy named Bruce Gernon, have even claimed this creates an electronic fog, a bizarre electromagnetic cloud that sticks to aircraft, throws off altimeters, and completely disorients pilots in midair. Then we have what I like to call the terror from below, methane clathrate. This is essentially natural gas that's trapped in an ice-like state right beneath the ocean floor. If tectonic plates shift, it can cause a massive ocean burp. Millions of giant bubbles rush to the surface, which drastically drops the density of the water. A ship caught in this foamy aerated water, it instantly loses buoyancy and drops straight to the bottom like a rock. And if that highly flammable methane gas hits the air and reaches a low-flying airplane's engine, it could instantly ignite. No way to survive that.
And, well, if the magnets or the methane don't get you, the waves absolutely might. The Bermuda Triangle sits smack in the middle of Hurricane Alley. When massive storms converge from multiple directions, say the north, the south, and Florida all at once, it creates what's called constructive interference. This can result in towering, completely unpredictable 85-foot rogue waves. These aren't your normal surfing waves. They are incredibly steep, literal cliffs of water that can send massive ships straight up, tip them over, and swallow them whole in seconds.
So that's the spooky science. Let's move on to section 4, the hard data.
Those scientific theories, yeah, they are terrifying and fascinating for sure. But right here, we need to make a critical pivot. We have got to step away from the spooky what-ifs and look directly at the cold, hard numbers. We have an area that ranges from 500,000 to over 1 million square miles, depending on who draws the map. So we really have to ask the ultimate question here. Is this massive stretch of ocean actually cursed? Is there really a statistical anomaly going on?
Because, look, if you were to read Charles Berlitz's 1974 mega bestseller, which sold 20 million copies, by the way, you'd think the answer is a resounding yes. Berlitz popularized some wildly fantastical theories: extraterrestrial abductions, time portals to other dimensions, the ancient crystals of the lost city of Atlantis dragging ships under. It was highly profitable storytelling that convinced the entire world the triangle was a paranormal death trap. But we are about to completely shatter that illusion.
Prepare yourselves for this number, 0.02%. Yeah, you heard me right. That is the actual documented casualty rate of vessels passing through the Bermuda Triangle in the year 2021. And this brilliantly illustrates the truth. When you look at comprehensive data from Lloyd's List, their major global shipping publication, the worldwide marine casualty rate sits at 1.8%. But out of the 8,634 ships that passed through the Bermuda Triangle in that recorded year, only 2 had an incident. 2! That makes the casualty rate 0.02%. The Bermuda Triangle isn't some cursed graveyard. Statistically, it is actually 90 times safer than the global average. It doesn't even make the top 10 list of the world's most dangerous bodies of water.
This leads us perfectly into section 5, weather and human error. So if there's no curse, there are no aliens, and absolutely no massive statistical anomaly, what is actually causing the rare accidents that do happen? When we compare the sensational fiction to the reality, the truth becomes painfully clear. We don't have magnetic portals out there. We have the Gulf Stream. This incredibly swift ocean current moves 300 times faster than the Amazon River. If a ship or plane does crash, the Gulf Stream can swiftly sweep the wreckage hundreds of miles away in a matter of hours, which perfectly explains why evidence is rarely found. Combine that with the violent, unpredictable storms of Hurricane Alley and deep ocean trenches that drop 30,000 feet, like Mount Everest in reverse, and it's just a naturally challenging environment. But the biggest factor of all? Human error. Let's actually look back at our course story for a second. Flight 19. It wasn't aliens that took those 5 bombers. According to experts like the Australian scientist Carl Kruselnicki, Lieutenant Charles Taylor was simply a notoriously bad navigator with a long history of getting lost. On that doomed day, despite his own crew actively arguing that they should turn west toward Florida, Taylor stubbornly believed he was somewhere else. He led his men east into the vast ocean until they literally just dropped from the sky. It's a tragic, completely preventable human mistake, entirely stripped of any supernatural glamour. Which brings us to our final takeaway, section 6, the power of story. So if the data is this crystal clear, and the real causes are just extreme weather and bad navigation, why in the world do we all know about the Bermuda Triangle? Well, it's because the Bermuda Triangle is a highly profitable storytelling industry. That 1974 book sparked countless Hollywood movies, like Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, endless documentaries, and a ton of merchandise. Humanity just suffers from major confirmation bias. We vividly remember the one spooky ghost ship story from 1881, but we completely ignore the thousands of commercial flights and cargo ships that sail through perfectly safely every single day. Let's be honest, the real facts, weather patterns and human mistakes, they just feel a bit boring compared to underwater alien crystals. And that really leaves us with a fascinating realization about human nature, doesn't it? We have completely mapped the globe, we have incredibly advanced radar and GPS, and we have mountains of data proving the Bermuda Triangle is fabulously unremarkable. Yet, the myth survives. Which leaves us with this final thought to reflect on today. Why do we so desperately prefer exciting conspiracies over remarkably unremarkable truths? Perhaps it's because deep down, we just want to believe that the world still holds some magic. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.